Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 49 of the Unstoppable Entertainment Show, the most comprehensive entertainment news show on the internet. I am, of course, Nate Schaffner, otherwise known as the Unstoppable Nate. How are you all doing today? I hope you're doing well. I do have. I'm planning on doing several shows today instead of one long episode, so that you don't have to listen to me ramble on constantly. Uh, I do have plenty I want to talk about today. And it's my day off, so I figured I'd try to record as much as I can today. I hope you're doing well. I hope this show provides a brief break from whatever it is that you're going through in life. I have to say, coming up on 50 episodes, I do enjoy doing this show, and I hope you enjoy listening to it. So I just want to remind everybody, if you like this show, go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, spread the word, tell your friends. Also, if you have a comment, a question, or if you'd like me to talk about certain movies or franchises, you can email me anytime at the address listed in the description of this video. So, with all that out of the way, let's get started today with this. Excuse me. So, one of my favorite actors ever is Nicolas Cage. I think it's interesting because I feel like Nicolas Cage can do something, can be in one movie, and audiences can be like, what the hell was that? And then he can do something like Long Legs, which was great, and audiences can be like, you are the greatest actor in the history of the world, you know. And he's kind of hinted that he's only got a few more movies left in him before he retires, and it looks like it has been announced that one of those movies, one of the movies that he's got left has been announced. Sorry, I was trying to think of the right words. This article is on Deadline, published by Andreas Weissman. This article says, here's a fun one. Oscar winner Nicolas Cage is starring with Justin Long and Shelley Hennig in under-the-radar action thriller Best Pancakes in the County, which is currently filming in Arkansas. Written and directed by Ken Sanzel, the film is set over the course of one night at a small-town diner that becomes the epicenter of a deadly standoff involving rogue federal agents, a fast-talking con man with a dangerous past, played by Nicolas Cage, and a waitress, played by Shelley Hennig, harboring secrets of her own. As loyalties blur and tensions erupt, survival depends on who can outthink and outgun everyone else. In this diner, the best pancakes in the county turn out to be the least explosive thing on the menu. Okay, so first of all, like I said, I love Nicolas Cage, and this definitely sounds like the kind of movie that Nicolas Cage would be in. A small town diner that becomes the epicenter of a deadly standoff. That sounds so good. So I'm not familiar with Shelley Hennig. I know she was in Unfriended and the Ouija movie. But I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with her. Justin Long. The first time I saw Justin Long, he was in this horror movie in 2001 called Jeepers Creepers. And that was the first movie that I saw him in, and then of course he was in Live Free or Die Hard, otherwise known as Die Hard 4, and he was great in that movie. And a lot of people, I love Die Hard 4. I think it's the best one since the original. And then of course he was in he was in Dodgeball, and I never get tired of watching dodgeballs being thrown at Justin Long. And I know that sounds cruel to say, but he's so funny in that movie. He's so great. And then he was in Tusk, which was directed by Kevin Smith. I really like Justin Long. So it doesn't say who he will be playing. Maybe he'll be playing one of these rogue federal agents. This sounds really interesting. I wonder, like, what are these secrets that these characters are harboring? What is why is there this standoff at a diner? This sounds great, because it sounds like a movie that the more is going to be revealed as the movie progresses, and it sounds like it's going to be one of those movies like every 3 minutes we're going to be like, what the fuck, and I love that. And come on, I'm never going to complain about seeing Nicolas Cage do his thing. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on the best pancakes in the county. All right, so moving on here. You may or may not recall, over the past couple of episodes, I've talked about this movie called Sunny, which is going to star Angelina Jolie and Charlie Plummer. It's kind of a gangster mafia movie, and Angelina Jolie is going to play the gangster, and she has to fight to protect her sons and herself from a drug kingpin. So and the movie is called Sunny, and there's been more casting news regarding that movie. This article is on Deadline, published by Matt Grobar. This article says Cliff Method Man Smith will star opposite Angelina Jolie and Charlie Plummer in Sunny, the dark thriller from Norwegian filmmaker Eva Soerhag, on which we've been reporting on since December. Character details are under wraps. Cliff Method Man Smith will be playing the role of black market art dealer Ruskin. So, I mean, not much to go on here. It's interesting seeing Method Man, like he's doing movies now. Okay, that's kind of cool, I guess. We'll see if he's got the chops. I mean, he probably can act better than I could, but this sounds again. I love Angelina Jolie, and this sounds great. And not much more to go on here, but I always say that the more casting news means they're going to start filming soon. And I I really like uh, um, uh, mafia gangster movies. I really, this is uh, before my time, but I watch a lot of older films, and one of my favorite actors, and by older I mean like 30s, 40s, 50s. I've over the past few years I've been watching a lot of movies from that era. And one of my favorite actors from that era is James Cagney, and he did a lot of those gangster films, and I mean White Heat is just it's phenomenal. I mean, and James Cagney is great in that movie. Um, and so I love gangster movies, and it'll be great to see a gangster movie that's headed up by a female lead. I mean, I think that's great. And this sounds, I'm very interested to see um, how this movie turns out, and I hope it's good. And again, I love anytime I get to see Angelina Jolie on screen. I'm not gonna complain. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on this. So this is, excuse me, just a second. Okay, so this next this next bit of news, aside from, I mean, the whole Netflix buying Warner Brothers thing is kind of a seismic shift um, in the industry. This next bit of news, I wouldn't necessarily call it a seismic shift, but it is big news in the industry. Um, it was reported on, let's see, how long ago was this? Um, three weeks ago. So, um, for those, I've talked about this a little bit before, but in like film fans, we all have our favorite franchises, and mine is Star Wars. It always has been, and it always will be. And um, these past so in 2012, 2013, I think, Disney bought Lucasfilm, and it was announced that more Star Wars movies were going to be made. And initially, I was completely against it. I was like, why? The story's done. And then I started to come around. I don't remember exactly how or why, but I was like, there's essentially, I felt like there's a whole, the Star Wars universe is so vast that you could tell an infinite amount of stories, and it's not just about the Skywalker story. So I came around, and there's a former producer turned studio head by the name of Kathleen Kennedy, and Kathleen Kennedy was before she was so Kathleen Kennedy at was appointed by George Lucas to be the new uh, head of Lucasfilm. She was a former film producer, and she is was the she well, she is the most successful film producer on the planet. If you look at her resume, she is the most successful film producer ever. I say was because she's not a film producer anymore. She will be now. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So she was a film producer before she was appointed by George Lucas to be the new head of Lucasfilm. And Kathleen Kennedy herself announced that there will absolutely be more Star Wars movies. Once Disney bought Lucasfilm, Kathleen Kennedy announced that there absolutely will be more Star Wars movies. And like I said, initially I was completely against it, but I came around. And she has been from, I believe, 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, until now, the CEO of Lucasfilm. And this was reported, it was reported 3 weeks ago that Kathleen Kennedy has stepped down as the president of Lucasfilm. Her successors have been named, but I thought I wanted to talk a little bit about Kathleen Kennedy as the head of Lucasfilm, because there are a lot of things that I want to say about her tenure as, and I've made some notes on this, there are a lot of things that I feel I need to say regarding her tenure as president of Lucasfilm, because her position, I feel, has been misconstrued by Star Wars fans who don't really understand the film industry, to be perfectly honest. Here's the thing. Kathleen Kennedy's job as president of as head of Lucasfilm, was to produce Star Wars movies and other Star Wars content like the Disney Plus shows. Kathleen Kennedy's job was to produce Star Wars material that was critically and financially successful. That was her job. And guess what? She did it. Her job was to produce Star Wars material that was successful critically and financially. That was her job, and she succeeded at that. Aside from the Han Solo movie, the young Han Solo movie, which I actually kind of liked. It's not my favorite of the Disney era of Star Wars movies, and I still don't know what the hell the Kessel Run is. But I liked the young Han Solo movie. However, it is to this day the only Star Wars movie that didn't make a profit. And again, I feel that her position at Lucasfilm has been misconstrued by Star Wars fans because she's not a creative producer. She was not in any way involved in the storytelling of any of the Disney Star Wars era of films or TV shows. She did not come up with a story. She was not a writer on any of it. She facilitated the creativity. Jon Favreau Jon Favreau, who was directing the upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu movie. Jon Favreau came to her with the idea of the Mandalorian. She didn't come up with that idea. Now, I will say, there was an instance on the young Han Solo movie, which again I kind of liked. I'm getting ahead of myself. So let me back up here. So at one point, there were 7 or 8, or maybe even 17. there were numerous Star Wars films that were announced that didn't end up happening. There was I think Guillermo del Toro was going to direct a Jabba the Hutt movie, which I would have loved to see. There was the Rogue Squadron movie. And the problem is there was this revolving door of announcements. Like, a movie would get announced, and then it turned out that the storytellers of whatever movie had just been announced and Kathleen Kennedy, they weren't on the same creative page. And it's like, okay, shouldn't you guys have been on the same page before you made the announcement? And that happened 7 or 8 times. Something would get announced, and then it turned out they weren't on the same page. And then the project ended up not happening. And what happened on the young Han Solo movie, which again I kind of liked it. For those who don't know, there were the Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who directed the 21 Jump Street movies, and I believe they did a couple of the Lego movies as well. They were hired to direct the young Han Solo movie. They were the first. And they were hired to do the young Han Solo movie, and they got, at least Kathleen Kennedy believed that they were on the same creative page as to what to do with that movie. And then they started filming, and they started making a completely different movie. And Lawrence Kasdan, who was involved creatively on that movie, went to Kathleen Kennedy because he was pissed. And he's like, they're not making the movie that they said they were going to make. So Phil Lord and Chris Miller were replaced by Ron Howard. And Ron Howard saved that movie from being a complete disaster. But at the same time, like I said, you had all these numerous Star Wars films that kept getting announced, and then, it's not happening because we can't get on the same creative page. And it's like, again, shouldn't you have been on the same page before you made the announcement? And there were all these and for me personally, I couldn't get excited anymore about any Star Wars announcements, film or TV. Well, more so film. I couldn't get excited anymore about Star Wars films because every time there was an announcement, it would be revealed that, we're not on the same page, and it ended up not happening. But I'm going to defend Kathleen Kennedy as far as like her role at Lucasfilm, because again, I feel that her role has been misconstrued. Her job was to produce Star Wars material that made money, and that was critically successful, and she did that. If you didn't like, I loved The Force Awakens. Um, I loved Rogue One. I loved it. Um, and look, I loved The Last Jedi, and I still do. A lot of people don't, and that's fine. The opposite for me was with Rise of Skywalker. I hated Rise of Skywalker, but a lot of people liked it, and that's fine. A lot of people hate it too. You know, so if you're gonna get, if you didn't like, and as far as the shows go, and I will admit there are a couple of Disney era Star Wars shows that I haven't watched, but I will say, The Mandalorian is awesome. I loved the Ahsoka show. Like, I'm sorry, that show's great. The Obi-Wan Kenobi show was great. I guess I'm one of the few people. I really, really enjoyed The Acolyte. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot more than the Book of Boba Fett, I can tell you that. The Book of Boba Fett, I remember reading a headline of an article that described the Book of Boba Fett as more like the pamphlet of Boba Fett. And it's true, because like the Book of Boba Fett, the best episodes of that show are the episodes where Boba Fett isn't even in the show. So the Disney era Star Wars shows and films, look, if you didn't like some of those shows and movies, don't get mad at Kathleen Kennedy, because she didn't write or come up with the idea for anybody, for any of those. She's not a creative producer. If you didn't like Rise of Skywalker, or if you didn't like The Last Jedi, get mad at the right people. Or if you didn't even like The Force Awakens, blame J.J. Abrams or blame Rian Johnson. Don't blame Kathleen Kennedy, because she's the one who facilitated the creativity. She didn't come up with the idea. She's not a writer. She's a producer, and she's a studio executive. All I'm saying is, Star Wars fans need to learn to, if you're going to get upset at the right people. Now, moving on to her successors. This article is on The Hollywood Reporter, published by Aaron Couch and Boris Kitt. This article says, after 14 years guiding Star Wars into the modern era through all its ups and downs, Kathleen Kennedy is stepping down as the president of Lucasfilm. Her departure from the company, which is effective this week, has long been expected, but still marks a seismic shift for one of the biggest brands in Hollywood. Let me see here. Now, here's where this is interesting. So this article does point out that Kathleen Kennedy is not departing the galaxy far, far away immediately. As part of her exit, she will continue on as a producer on the next 2 Lucasfilm movies, The Mandalorian and Grogu and Star Wars Starfighter. I'm not going to lie, I have no interest in Star Wars Starfighter. Because, yeah, no. Mia Goth is in it, and I hate her. So I have no interest in that movie. And it says she will pursue other projects outside Lucasfilm as an independent producer. Now, here's where this gets interesting. This article does continue. In her wake, Executive VP and Chief Creative Officer Dave Filoni has been promoted to oversee the creative direction of the company as President and Chief Creative Officer of Lucasfilm. President and GM of Lucasfilm Business, Lynwen Brennan, will handle the business side of things as co-president of Lucasfilm. Splitting creative and the business duties is a common Disney strategy, with Pixar run by Pete Docter and Jim Morris, and Walt Disney Animation overseen by Jared Bush and Clark Spencer. Filoni and Brennan will report to Alan Bergman, co-chairman of Disney Entertainment. By the way, this splitting creative and business duties, that is also what Warner Brothers and DC Studios are doing. You know, you have James Gunn, who is in charge of the creative direction, and Peter Safran, who is involved on the business end. So that's another comparison. This article does go on to say that Dave Filoni was mentored by Lucas and came up through the world of animation, overseeing beloved series such as The Clone Wars, before teaming with Jon Favreau on live-action shows such as The Mandalorian and Ahsoka. Lynwen Brennan joined Lucasfilm in 1999 and rose to president of Industrial Light and Magic before assuming her current role in 2015, overseeing all of business for the company. Let me see here. Let's see. So yeah. So I like the fact that Lynwen Brennan has worked her way up. Let me see here. Yeah, I like the fact that Lynwen Brennan has worked her way up. Dave Filoni being in charge of the creative at Lucasfilm. I fucking love this. I love this. There is, aside from maybe Sam Witwer, who, for those who don't know, Sam Witwer does the voice of Darth Maul in the Clone Wars and Rebels. Aside from maybe Sam Witwer, there is no one who is steeped in Star Wars lore like Dave Filoni. Dave Filoni is a walking, talking Star Wars encyclopedia. And I love that. And I love that he, again, he worked on the Clone Wars, which I loved. I really, really enjoyed Clone Wars. And then he directed a couple of live-action episodes of more than a couple. He directed a few live-action episodes of The Mandalorian, which they're pretty fucking good. And I love the fact that someone who is as steeped in Star Wars lore as Dave Filoni is. I love that Dave Filoni is now going to be in charge of the creative direction of the studio. I love that. I think I don't know what else to say about it. I love it, and I think, look, I'm I'm very I look, I'm very opinionated, as you can tell, about the kinds of Star Wars stuff that I liked and didn't like, and there are lots of people who are. But I think, objectively speaking, um, someone who is as steeped in Star Wars lore as Dave Filoni is good for the company. I still don't think that Kathleen Kennedy did a bad job, you know. Um, but I think this is a good direction for the company to go in. And again, I like that um, Lucasfilm is going to be. It's going to be a joint. Um, a joint creative and business venture. You know, I love that. And I'm really, really excited for the future of Star Wars because, if anything, it means that if something gets announced, it's probably going to happen. So, I just wanted to take a few moments and talk about that. Again, Kathleen Kennedy is not the person to get mad at if you hated The Last Jedi, or if you didn't, or if you haven't liked. If there are certain things that you loved about the Disney era of Star Wars, or if there's certain things that you hated about the Disney era of Star Wars, praise or hate the right person. Kathleen Kennedy ain't the right person to if you liked something, you should praise the creators and the writers of the show or the movie. If you hated it, don't blame Kathleen Kennedy. Blame the right person. That's all I have to say. And I'm really excited about the future of Star Wars with Lin-Manuel Brennan and especially Dave Filoni. I think this is going to be really good for the company. I really, really do. So anyway, jump in the comments section and let me know your thoughts about the future of Lucasfilm. Okay, so I went kind of off the rails there. I do apologize. So moving on here. One of my favorite trilogies, film trilogies, is the How to Train Your Dragon trilogy. I love it so much. And let me see here. So there was last year there was a live action remake of How to Train Your Dragon, which I have not seen. I've heard positive things about it. I've also heard mixed things about it. I've heard like, oh, you can basically just watch the animated one, which I think is disappointing. But I also have heard very positive things about it. I still haven't seen it though. And Gerard Butler, of course, returned. In the live action hold on. Gerard Butler reprised his role as Stoic in the live-action How to Train Your Dragon movie. And the movie was, I believe it was in the top 10 highest-grossing movies of last year. It made over $630 million worldwide. So it was enormously successful. And there's an announcement regarding the future, at least of the live action How to Train Your Dragon films. This article is on CBR, published by Lee Freitag. This article says, another actor from the animated How to Train Your Dragon trilogy is returning for the live-action remakes. Cate Blanchett will officially reunite with Gerard Butler in Universal's live-action remake of How to Train Your Dragon 2. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Blanchett has closed a deal to reprise her role as Viking warrior Valka in the upcoming sequel. So yeah, Cate Blanchett is going to return to play the live action version of Valka. This is awesome. And I love Cate Blanchett so much. I've talked about it before. You know, the first movie I saw her in was Elizabeth. She's one of my favorite actresses. And like this is now, like I need to see the live action, the first one. I really need to see it. This is great. It's going to be so great seeing her and Gerard Butler together in live action. That's going to be awesome. I again and look, I say this as someone who hasn't seen the first live action one. I hope that like, so I don't know if the live action for the first live action one is different at all from the animated one. I hope it is, and I hope that this live action version of How to Train Your Dragon 2 is a little different than the second animated one. Like, I don't want what happened with The Lion King. I don't want that because that severely disappointed me. But this is awesome. You know, I have to be honest. Cate Blanchett being in this movie, now that it's confirmed that she's going to be in it, this movie is now a top priority for me. Cate Blanchett, I hope it's great, and again, I love the fact that the co-creator and director of the animated films is the one who made the live action one and is going to be making this one as well. I love that. And that's the other thing too. Like if his name is Dean DeBlois. If he wasn't involved in that, I would have no interest either. Because like someone else doing How to Train Your Dragon, that's sacrilegious to me. I don't know. But yeah, so yeah, this sounds great. And again, I'm gonna love seeing Cate Blanchett and Gerard Butler on screen together. That's gonna be awesome. Hopefully it's good, and hopefully it's successful, much like the first one was. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts about Cate Blanchett returning as Valka in a live-action How to Train Your Dragon 2. Okay, so moving on here. Um, so for those who don't know, I am a huge look. I'm 41 years old, and I will freely admit that I am a huge to this day. When I was a kid, and even now as a 41-year-old man child, one of my favorite uh, things in the world as far as animation is Looney Tunes. I love Looney Tunes. I can still there's a those uh, animated shorts of Foghorn Leghorn, Foghorn Leghorn. Jesus, I can't even speak. Foghorn Leghorn. Um, Foghorn Leghorn spanking that dog with the paddle, right? It's still one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Like, I could watch that right now and just laugh my ass off. I'm a big Looney Tunes fan. All the different characters. And I've seen, you know, I don't care what anybody says. Space Jam is awesome. Space Jam is awesome. And then there was, um, well, before Space Jam 2, which was, I didn't hate it. Then there was Looney Tunes Back in Action, which was okay. It had Brendan Fraser and Jenna Elfman. And then there was, I think it was last year, no, it was 2024. There was this Looney Tunes movie um, called called The Day the Earth Blew Up, which which starred Daffy Duck and Porky Pig as they uncover an alien mind control plot. Which I didn't see, but I heard it's great. I fucking love Looney Tunes. I don't care. So there's this report on MovieWeb. There's this article on MovieWeb published by Dan Seddon that a new Looney Tunes movie is in the works. Now, it's going to be a Speedy Gonzales movie. This article says, via The Hollywood Reporter, Mexican animator Jorge R. Gutierrez is officially behind the project, having only recently teased his involvement on social media. Last month, he captioned an Instagram photo of himself not just in a Speedy t-shirt, but also holding a figurine of the sombrero-wearing rodent. Guess what movie I might be developing at Warner Brothers Pictures Animation? Now, what's interesting, and this article does point this out, apparently the character of Speedy Gonzales. So let me just read this here. Plot details are not yet known, but the wisecracking, nippy little character has been a mainstay of the Looney Tunes world since the 1950s, but he has faced some backlash for being outdated and offensive. And yes, I'm doing the air quotes because the quotes are there. The air quotes are there. Outdated and offensive by seemingly anyone but the people of Mexico. Here's the thing. If the people of Mexico aren't offended by Speedy Gonzales, should anybody else be? I mean, really? um, you know, I I'm just I'm just excited for I love Looney Tunes. You know, I'm just excited that we're getting another movie. I really want to see that Day the Earth Blew Up. Daffy Duck and Porky Pig working together. That's golden. That's golden. I actually, speaking of golden, um, a few years back, I think on either on my Christmas, either on my birthday or Christmas, my mom got me the Looney Tunes Golden Collection on DVD, which is in storage somewhere. And I was like, "You have to get me this because Looney Tunes is awesome." And she was like, "Okay," you know. A Speedy Gonzales movie. Um, I wonder. I'm just anticipating what kind of shenanigans he's gonna get in. Underlay, Reba. Just yeah. I'm just excited that. What's interesting is that it's Looney Tunes has been around for so long, and yet still remains relevant. It's still relevant, which I think has a lot to say about the quality and the legacy of Looney Tunes. It's very hard for any creative endeavor to be around that long and still remain relevant. You know, and like I said, I can't wait. I can't wait. I would love an hour and a half of Speedy Gonzales causing chaos. I would love that. So, you know, uh, let me see if this article says. Uh, yeah. So, jump in the comments section and let me know what you guys think about a Speedy Gonzales movie being in the works. Okay, so yeah. So moving on to some DC news regarding the upcoming Supergirl movie, which I think looks awesome. I'm really excited for the Supergirl movie. It's crazy to think that there hasn't been a Supergirl movie since 1984. So, like, I was, from a personal point of view, there hasn't been a Supergirl movie since I was born. Like that's crazy to me. So anyway, so um let me see here because I want to make sure. Okay, so there's going to be uh there are going to be it seems like there are going to be several. There's going to be the main antagonist of the Supergirl movie, and then there's going to be several uh there's going to be several secondary antagonists, secondary villains, whatever you want to call them. And um, Jason Momoa as Lobo is going to be in it. That's going to be awesome. So this article is on CBR, published by Deanna Carpenter. And this article says, the DC Universe has just found its newest villain. and this article does go on to say that there's an actor by the name of Diarmaid Murtaugh who is on that show Vikings, which I have not seen. Diarmaid Murtaugh. This article says, according to Deadline, Murtaugh is set to play Drom Baxton, who is second in command of the Brigands. The Brigands is led by the villainous Krem of the Yellow Hills, played by Matthias Schoenaerts. The Brigands, a band of space pirates and human traffickers, are set to be the main antagonists in Supergirl. So I think, if any of you have seen the Supergirl trailer, there's that moment in the trailer where everyone's got weapons pointed at Supergirl and her companion. And Supergirl says, this is not going to end well for you guys. I'm assuming the people that have their weapons pointed at Supergirl and her companion are the Brigands, the band of space pirates and human traffickers. And so the Brigands are led by Krem of the Yellow Hills, and his second is Drom Baxton. And Drom Baxton is going to play Drom Baxton is going to be the second in command of the Brigands. I kind of dig this, because I'm not sure how quite to explain it, but I like the fact that we're going to see space pirates and human. Let me. I want to be careful here. Space pirates and human human traffickers in a Supergirl movie is interesting, because I think this is an opportunity for Supergirl. We're going to see this is an opportunity for Supergirl to showcase her power. And maybe these space pirates and human traffickers, they want to exploit Supergirl's powers and abilities, and use them for their own personal gain. I kind of, we saw in the Superman movie, we saw Superman go up against someone as powerful, literally, like, as powerful as he is. And I think it would be a little redundant to see that again. I wouldn't complain about it, but I think it would be a little redundant. So I like the fact that at least, and I have another thing I want to talk about in terms of another secondary villain in this movie. More on that later. But right now, it seems like these space pirates and human traffickers. I like that. Like, it seems like Supergirl is going to, like, these space pirates and human traffickers are either going to be after Supergirl or her companion, and either way, this is an opportunity for us to see Supergirl showcase her power, and I like that. I like that a lot. I like that we're not just getting an echo of what we saw in Superman. I really enjoy that. So, and now here's I wanna so for those who don't know, this movie is based on the comic book series Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King, who Tom King is awesome. What he did with Batman is genius. Now in those comics, Supergirl and Noel, who is this young alien girl. So Noel is killed by Krem of the Yellow Hills. No, I'm sorry. Noel's father is killed by Krem of the Yellow Hills. And Supergirl and Noel, after that happens, they hunt this Krem of the Yellow Hills. And this movie is going to be based on that. This movie is based on that comic. So I just want to give clarification that for anyone who might be wondering what the story is going to be, this is based on the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comic. So if you're familiar with that comic, you can probably guess roughly what the movie is going to be about. And it sounds awesome. It sounds awesome. And again, I like the fact that we're not just getting a repeat of what we saw in Superman. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about the Brigands, space pirates, human traffickers, going to be the main antagonists. What do you think about this being based on the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow? Jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts on this. So, moving on here. So one of there was a movie that came out in 1964, 65. That was directed by Roger Corman. That starred Vincent Price. And Roger Corman recently died. But it starred Vincent Price and was called The Mask of the Red Death. And it's Roger Corman was kind of like the king of the B movies. But The Mask of the Red Death is great. It's Vincent Price plays this Prince Prospero, and it has this vibrant, it's very colorful. It's a very colorful movie. And it's great. And it was recently announced, for those who don't know, that there's going to be a remake of The Mask of the Red Death. Now, for anybody that knows me well, I used to be completely against remakes because I thought I used to be completely against remakes because why do you have to remake something? Why can't you just pass down the original? And why can't you just let the original stand on its own and be part of this rich cinematic legacy that we have in our history? Why you have to remake it and possibly ruin it? But then I started to come around and, I've seen a few remakes and thought to myself, given the right creative people involved, a remake could be really good. So this remake of The Mask of the Red Death is going to star Mikey Madison, who recently won the Oscar for... I'm going to be blanking on it. For Honora. Yeah, Honora. And she's one of my favorite up-and-coming actresses. She appeared briefly in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Quentin Tarantino movie. And, you know, it's clear from Honora that she can carry a movie. So her being in this Mask of the Red Death is that makes me interested in this movie. Now there has been more casting news regarding this remake of The Mask of the Red Death. This article is on The Hollywood Reporter, published by Boris Kitt. This article says, French actress Léa Seydoux has joined Mikey Madison in The Mask of the Red Death, A24 Studios' reimagining of the creepy Edgar Allan Poe story from filmmaker Charlie Pollinger. A24 is mum on the official plot, but does describe the project as wildly revisionist and darkly comedic. Sources tell The Hollywood Reporter that Mikey Madison is playing twin sisters in a story that sees a mad prince take in the noble class to his castle while a plague devastates the peasantry. The story sees a long-lost twin, hidden among the lower class, enter the castle and into a decadent world of orgies, opium, power schemes, revenge, and decapitations. Seydoux will play a scheming lady-in-waiting who is conniving her way to the top. So if you're familiar with the Edgar Allan Poe story, if you're familiar with the original film, you have a pretty good idea of what's going to be in this remake. So Mikey Madison is one of my favorite actresses. Léa Seydoux is going to be in this movie. Léa Seydoux played Madeline in the last two Daniel Craig James Bond movies, and she was wonderful. She was wonderful in those movies. She played Madeline. She was also in this movie that was based on a graphic novel called Blue is the Warmest Color. Blue is the Warmest Color. And that movie is is beautiful. It's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful movie. My only advice about watching that movie is to watch it alone. That's all I'll say. But it's I can't even, the word beautiful is the only word that doesn't even do the movie justice. It's a beautiful story. It's beautifully filmed. It's beautifully acted. It's just, yeah. And Léa Seydoux was in that movie, and it's great. It's wonderful. So I love the fact that she's going to be in this movie, and I love that this is, and again, a decadent world of orgies, opium, power schemes, revenge, and decapitations. This movie is not going to be for the weak of heart. This movie is going to be Um, I think there are things couldn't you couldn't do that they couldn't do in 1963 and 64 that they couldn't do with that movie that they can do with this movie. They can make certain things more prominent, and I love that. I love that. I think this movie. I will say I think this movie is going to turn a lot of people off. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to say, "Why do you have to have him? Why do you have to make a movie that has this in it?" And it's like, well, because, just because, movies are a creative endeavor, you know, and it's fun to explore your creativity. So I'm really excited about this. I think I think Lea Seydoux is going to be great in this movie. Excuse me. I think Mikey Madison is going to be great in this movie. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about Mikey Madison and Lea Seydoux going to be in a remake of The Mask of the Red Death. All right, let's see here. So, more casting news regarding this Angelina Jolie Sunny movie that's going to be this dark thriller. So, and there's not much to go on here because his character is being his character details are being kept under wraps. So this article is on Deadline, published by Matt Grobar. Jason Schmidt from Grease: Rise of the Pink Ladies is going to be will star alongside Angelina Jolie, Charlie Plummer, and Cliff Method Man Smith. In Sunny, the dark thriller from Norwegian filmmaker Eva Soerhag. Okay, so not much to go on there. Again, more casting news means that they're going to start filming soon. I've heard decent things about Grease: Rise of the Pink Ladies. Let me just say this. I love Grease. I don't care. I don't care what people think. I'm a 41-year-old man and I love Grease. Sue me. So yeah. So again, more casting news means they're going to start filming soon. I'm really excited for this, as I mentioned earlier. So I just wanted to throw that bit of casting news out there and see what you guys think. Again, not much to go on because the article says that the character details are being kept under wraps. So I do apologize for that. But I just wanted to throw that bit of casting news out there. So there is another. This next film announcement, I can talk a lot about it because this article does go into detail about it. There's this romantic thriller movie coming from a director by the name of Ramin Barani, who is this. He's an Iranian American filmmaker. He directed The White Tiger, 99 Homes, Chop Shop, and he's doing this movie, this romantic thriller called Vegas, a Love Story. And there's been casting news regarding that movie. Um, and plot details about this movie. So this article is on Deadline, published by Matt Grobar. Ramin Barani, the Oscar-nominated Iranian-American filmmaker behind titles like The White Tiger, 99 Homes, and Chop Shop, has entered production today in Las Vegas on Vegas, a Love Story, a sensual romance with thriller elements that boasts an all-star cast including Micah Monroe, Brendan Sklenar, Paul Dano, Michael Shannon, and Judy Greer. This article does go on to say, directed by Barani from a script written by Bahare Azimi, Vegas, a Love Story unfolds beneath the glow of the Las Vegas Strip, where Dylan, played by Micah Monroe, a gifted graphic designer hustling for work, falls into a passionate, unexpected romance with Freddie, played by Brandon Sklenar, a welder and single father struggling to rebuild his life. As Dylan hides the fact that she's living out of her car, Freddie's wary in-laws, played by Michael Shannon and Judy Greer, step in to protect their grandson. The return of Ryder, played by Paul Dano, Dylan's charming but self-destructive ex, threatens to unravel everything. So this sounds very interesting. This sounds like a very kind of layered romantic thriller. Lots of character stuff going on. Micah Monroe, she was in Longlegs with Nicolas Cage. And I loved that movie. I loved Nicolas Cage. And I loved Micah Monroe in that movie. To be honest with you, what's the other horror movie that she did? It Follows. I haven't seen that. I've heard it's great. There's a scene in Longlegs, and first of all, Micah Monroe is great throughout the entire film. But she's especially great in the scene where her character first meets the Longlegs character played by Nicolas Cage. The scene where she meets him for the first time face to face is such an incredible acting scene on both Nicolas Cage and Micah Monroe's parts. Micah Monroe is incredible, especially in that scene. And you know, it's I really enjoy. I like watching her. I like watching her act. I mean, she's a very fine actress. You know what? Paul Dano is on my list of favorite actors. He gives such. He just disappears into every role that he's in. Whether it's Little Miss Sunshine or playing the Riddler in the Batman movie, I mean, he's great. He's great, and he was great in There Will Be Blood. You know, I mean, he's a fantastic actor. Michael Shannon is one of my favorite actors. I love Michael Shannon. You know what's funny is that the first movie I think I saw Michael Shannon in was the Pearl Harbor movie that was directed by Michael Bay. And I remember I took my father to see that movie because I took that. I stupidly thought that it was a good idea for me to take him to see that movie for his birthday. I suppose it did not come as any. I suppose I shouldn't have been surprised that he didn't like that movie very much. And that, you know, the movie isn't very good. But Michael Shannon's in that movie, and I was like, oh, Michael Shannon, the guy, from Pearl Harbor. And he's an incredible actor. He was in not Lady in the Water. Michael Shannon. What's the Guillermo del Toro movie? The Shape of Water. That's it. He was in that. He was in. He was recently in that. There was a movie that came out recently called Nuremberg, which is about the which is about the mental evaluations of the Nazi prisoners before the Nuremberg trials, and he was in that. He also played General Zod in Man of Steel. What else was he? I mean, he's been in. He was in Nocturnal Animals. He was in Revolutionary Road. He's done so much. He's one of my favorite actors. Judy Greer is someone who has been working for a long time and can do. She's just a chameleon actress. Judy Greer is someone who's been acting for a long time, and I haven't seen much of her stuff. I just watched recently for the first time, Three Kings with George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg. No, was it George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg? Yeah. And then she played Laurie Strode's daughter in the newer Halloween movies. I mean, she's been acting for a long time, and I really like watching her as well. So this sounds great. It sounds again like she has this unexpected romance. Micah Monroe's character. I'm sorry. Dylan has an unexpected romance while living out of her car, and then the guy she has the romance with, her in-laws step in, and then her ex-boyfriend. This sounds like a very layered, creative piece, and I am all here for it. And it's got a really great cast. Hopefully it's good. And by the way, I love that it's called Vegas: A Love Story, and it's being filmed in Vegas. I love that. That's I love when movies are actually filmed in the place that they take place in. I love that. This sounds like a very layered character-based movie. So I'm all here for it. So jump in the comment section and let me know your thoughts about Vegas: A Love Story. One more bit of news here regarding the Actually, it's not regarding the Supergirl movie. It's regarding Man of Tomorrow, which is the Superman sequel. So, and I should uh, point out that um, this is not confirmed. This is more, I would say, speculation and rumor more than confirmed report. But it seems that all signs are pointing to this. I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm saying it looks like it. It looks like it might happen. This is more rumor than report. This is so. I just want to throw that out there because so here's what's going on. This article is on MovieWeb, published by Richard Fink. So, there is a casting process going on right now for Man of Tomorrow, which is going to be the sequel to the Superman movie. There's a casting process happening, and it revolves around a female supporting character. This article describes it as a female supporting character that was described as warrior-like and a certain height requirement. Okay? Now, that has led to speculation that it could be Wonder Woman. Okay? James Gunn has shut that down. Like, it's not going to be Wonder Woman. However, if it's not going to be Wonder Woman, there is speculation that it could be another female character. And this article does point out that it could be a villain. And that villain could be Maxima. So I'm just going to read this article here. So again, this article is published by Richard Fink on MovieWeb. With James Gunn shutting down rumors that Wonder Woman would appear in Man of Tomorrow, speculation has already turned to the female character that seems to be in the casting process for James Gunn's Superman follow-up. Man of Tomorrow is set to open in theaters on July 9th, 2027, and with filming set to begin in spring 2026, fans are looking for any details they can get about the plot of the next entry in the DCU. A female supporting character that was described as warrior-like, and a certain height requirement led many to guess Wonder Woman, but Gunn seems to be casting another DC heroine, one who also can work as a villain. So, like I said, all signs are pointing toward Maxima. So, I'm going to give a brief character description of Maxima for those who aren't familiar with her. So Maxima is a child of the royal family of the planet of Almerac. And she's the oldest child of that royal family. And she is seeking a mate and eventually sets her sights on Superman. Um, she was originally an antagonist, and then she became an ally of Superman and was even briefly in the Justice League. Um, and then they kind of reinvented the character in the New 52. She became a Supergirl ally. And they reinvented her sexuality as well, which made her an outcast on her planet. There was a 1992 comic storyline called Panic in the Sky, where Maxima teamed up with, well, reluctantly teamed up with Brainiac. And then she eventually turned on him and became a member of the Justice League. Now, this, and I should again say that this idea of Maxima being in Man of Tomorrow is speculation and rumor at best. So don't get too excited about this. But I kind of like this idea, so for those who don't know, this Man of Tomorrow movie, it's going to see Superman and Lex Luthor reluctantly team up to fight Brainiac, which I think that makes sense, given that we're going to see Lex Luthor in the green and purple mech suit, and it makes sense for Superman and Lex Luthor to team up against a character like Brainiac. I wonder if this Man of Tomorrow movie is going to take inspiration from this comic storyline, Panic in the Sky. And maybe we'll see Maxima and Lex Luthor. We're going to see Superman and Lex Luthor against Brainiac and Maxima. That could be interesting. And we could introduce, and Maxima could be introduced as a character who could become a main antagonist later down the line. I don't know. I don't hate, if this is true, I don't hate it. Would I prefer to see Superman and Lex Luthor team up would I prefer to see Superman and Lex Luthor just team up against Brainiac? Yes, because I think Brainiac poses enough of a singular threat to be a match for both Lex Luthor and Superman. I don't think you need Maxima in this movie. I think Brainiac poses enough of a threat. Would it be cool for really die-hard, sweaty comic book fans? Yeah, that would be cool. And seeing as how steeped in DC Comics lore James Gunn is, it wouldn't surprise me. But again, people should take this with a giant grain of salt. I'm not expecting this to happen. Would it be cool? Yeah. I don't think it's necessary, though. again, I think Brainiac poses enough of a threat alone. But it could be cool. It could be cool. And you know, I kind of like. I just want to say this about James Gunn because he's facing a lot of it, in my mind at least. He's facing a lot of criticism about how much he's on social media. And because a lot of people are asking, you know, or speculating about who could be in this movie, and they're asking questions about, are you going to do this or are you going to do that? Is so and so going to be in this movie? Blah 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 blah. And James Gunn has always been very direct in his answers. You know, yes, no, wait and see. You know, he can be very direct while also being very cagey at the same time. And I like that. You know, I like you know, he knows. I think he expected this when he took on the role at DC Studios. And he's always been very open and honest about the plans for the future of the DCU. And I love that. So, Maxima could possibly be in Man of Tomorrow. Maybe not. Don't expect it. But it could be cool. But I would prefer just to see Superman and Lex Luthor against Brainiac. Those are just my thoughts. So jump in the comment section and let me know what you guys think about Maxima possibly rumored to be in the Man of Tomorrow. Well, folks, that'll about do it for this episode. I am going to take a little bit of a break here before I continue for the day. So yeah, I am going to go see Send Help this coming week. Instead of this weekend. I'm probably going to see it next week. So there is that. But that'll about do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode and look forward to more later today. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you look forward to more. And as always, I will see you at the movies.